What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and hurdle avoided, managed to get 3 points. This was an interesting one because coming into the game, obviously, Brentford's away record has been god-awful. We've been pretty good 6 wins in a row. So coming into this game, it feels like Chelsea should comfortably win this, but Brentford have been our bogey team at home for the past few years. Now, granted, past few years, the team has been in disarray, so it's hard to really say that, oh, well, this is just a sign that Brentford are always going to be our bogey team. Like, this is the first year where I feel more confident in the team, but we know that they're going to give us a game. They're not pushovers. They're not going to be Southampton. They're not going to be Tottenham. But I think it did show that, Brentford are no easy contest. They clearly were in it up until the final whistle. I do feel like we didn't really do our job and didn't really kill off the game like we should have, and I'll talk about some of the players that were involved in that when I get to it. But I do think overall the team, you could clearly see we were working hard, defended pretty well for most of the game. And I think we managed to at least control it enough to where they only had that little last spell after their first set of subs until the end of the match. And even then, we still managed to get our second goal, which kind of took a little bit more pressure off. But that was about the only time that I felt like Brentford were really threatening us throughout the match, because for the majority of it, we did control it really well. We managed to keep a lot of possession. It was good to see. But before we talk about our team, let's talk about the man, the myth, the Joker, Peter Banks. Because it's so funny. Anytime I think about the worst referees in the Premier League, my mind goes Anthony Taylor, Craig Pawson, David Coote used to be. Goodbye, loser. But Peter Banks is one that I often don't think about until we have him in a match. And then I remember just how bad he is. And he's awful. Today he had no control over anything. The amount of pushing and shoving and holding and pulling and everything that was going on in the box. And he was just not involved in any of it. We should have had 2 clear penalties. Granted, I wasn't paying attention, so they may have had a few penalty shouts as well. But the 2 I'm thinking of in particular, the one where, I don't remember the guy's name, but he had a hold of Cucurella's, the back of his jersey, and was basically pulling him back, and Cucurella goes down, no call. And then there's the one where he stops the corner as it's about to come in because Colwell's been dragged to ground. And it wasn't one of those, because sometimes the guys will have their arms around and they'll just be here, with the arms around them, but they're not really holding them. They're just sort of keeping them in place. This guy, he had his hand locks. He had a full-on bear hug on Colwell, and Peter's looking right at it. Like, you could see, they showed a behind angle. You could see he's looking directly at that challenge. That's a penalty. But no, stop the corner. Hey, stop doing that. No, call the foul. He dragged him to ground. He bear hugged him, pulled him to ground. That's a penalty. Call the penalty. But he doesn't do that. So it's 2. And again, they may have had some. I wasn't really paying attention on their corners. But definitely for us, those 2 should have been penalties. It starts foul-wise. You got Gusto sliding in past the guy who flicks it behind and then goes running straight ahead. Clearly, he's going into the challenge that Gusto's come sliding in towards. He has not been fouled by Gusto. He runs into Gusto and falls over. And it wasn't even a convincing fall either. It was basically he took a step forward and then just almost took a knee on Gusto and then fell. For a second, everybody just sort of stopped. And then Peter's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's a foul then. Don't know how that's a foul. And then there are 2 challenges on Palmer, maybe a little bit soft, but if you're going to call that one, you should call those 2. Doesn't call either of those, and then they have another soft one that I think Caicedo's coming in, guy goes over under barely any contact, and it's a foul. So it's just way too inconsistent from him throughout the match. And then the cards, granted, I haven't fully seen what happened at the end of the match, so it's a good chance maybe Cucurella does do something that is warranting of a yellow. In my opinion, though, it seems like it's just a bit of a, coming together of 2 players after the match. And it feels like he's just sort of that lazy, I'm going to card both players since they're both involved in this. Don't actually know if anything happened. If it did, then I'll rescind this statement. But to me, it seems like it's just a lazy, okay, 2 players are kind of coming together, yellow for you, yellow for you. The problem is one of those players is already on a yellow. And you can always tell if a referee doesn't know that a guy's on a yellow. Because if that happens, you always see him yellow, and then that's it. And then a few seconds later, Oh, right, he's already on a yellow. Red. And that's what happened. He gives the yellow, and he's kind of sitting there scribbling down. You could see the moment when he realizes, oh, he was already on a yellow. Well, I guess I got to send him off now. So to me, that's just lazy. That is just lazy refereeing, that you just want to card both of the guys because they're both involved. Don't even know if Cucurella did anything worthy of a yellow. The most I saw was he gave the guy a little shove on the shoulder. That's not a yellow card. There's no yellow in that. So unless he did something before that, if he did, then fine, whatever. He deserves a second yellow for it. But from what I saw, he gave the guy a little shove on the shoulder because it seemed like they were like, maybe mouthing off a little bit, and he just gives both players a yellow card, which is lazy, and now we're without Cucurella for the next match. So thank you very much for that, Peter Banks, you absolute idiot. And now on to our team, because it wasn't all our own way today. Some of that was because Brentford are a good team, and they're in decent run of form. They work hard every match. They always give it. They're not a team that's just going to roll over on us because we scored a couple of goals. So they were going to give us a game, and I think everybody knew that. However, we definitely shot ourselves in the foot several times today. First of all, from Maresca's point of view, I think the lineup is fine. You look at Pedro's obviously out because of the red card. We've got no Fofana, nobody a shield, so Tosin steps in. And, I mean, even though I personally think that Tosin in some ways is a better defender than the other two, clearly now that those two are out, he is going to be the next one to start alongside Colwill, so I have no problem with the lineup. He's also not got Lavia. He's not got Felix, no Mudryk. So there are a lot of options that he would normally have that he didn't have today. So I think the lineup is really no surprise. But what was a bit of a surprise was no subs coming off the bench. Because for me, I realized the quality isn't quite the same from some of the guys we had on the bench. But there's still something to be said of you could use some fresh legs. And there are also a couple of players that, in my opinion, were not giving us hardly anything. And I feel like you could have put anybody out there and we probably would have gotten a bit more. So I'll talk about those players when I get to them. But yeah, I just feel like only subbing Nkunku on for Jackson, I felt like he could have done a bit more to keep us in the ascendancy, keep Brentford from having that last flurry of chances in stoppage time. And it just felt like he didn't really trust anybody on the bench to do that for us. And I feel like that's a little bit of a concern because I looked at the bench, not a very strong bench, definitely a lot of youngsters on there. But I do feel like somebody could have come off and done a little bit more or just given us some fresh legs to sort of run around and put good pressure. So that way Brentford were not able to have so much time to create today. Getting into individuals though, first Sanchez, I gotta say, this is exactly why I think Maresca is sticking with him because he was big for us today. And his passing, still really bad. The moments when we're going back to him, I still get very nervous, but his saves are phenomenal. And it's very much the conversation that has been had before when we had, say, Mendy and Kepa as our two options. Kepa was very good with his feet. In my opinion, he's not a good keeper. He doesn't move his feet very well. He's not a good shot stopper. If it's right at him, he'll do okay. Most of the time, though, if it's a little bit away from him, he doesn't move to get there. I call the move where the keepers sort of stand and turn to watch it go in. That move to me is the Kepa because I've seen him do it so much because he plants and he's done. He's not getting side to side. Mendy, terrible with his feet, but he's a good shot stopper. He was phenomenal for us in some games. There were some where it felt like there's no way he's getting there. Somehow he gets across and gets a touch to it. It's very much back to that conversation of, do you want a keeper that can make good saves or do you want a keeper that can play with his feet? Problem is Maresca is very clearly wanting them to still use him for his feet in situations, and honestly in situations where we don't even need to. There are several moments today, and I talked about this a bit. I want to say it was in the Leicester match, because I think that was a match where we were fine for most of it, but then all of a sudden at some point we started going back to him, even though a lot of our possession was in the midfield, and I didn't see any reason to. There are so many moments where I see there's an option in the midfield, or you can go wide with it, but yet we sort of stand on the ball, we wait, striker comes, put pressure, and now all of a sudden we're going back to him. And then we invite the pressure on, and he's not good with his feet, and then he kicks it out of bounds, or he kicks it right to them. I don't think he's good with his feet, but I also have to sit here and wonder, why do we use his feet then? Why does Maresca tell the defense to do that? Why does the defense, if he's not telling them to, why are they not finding these better options that are clearly right there? Even if there is some pressure, I feel like it's better to go there and then come back just to get them to move a little bit rather than just let them come on to you, go back to your keeper, who then is probably going to give it away. long story short, Sanchez today, his shot stopping is what we really needed because Brentford are a good team and they are going to create a lot of chances, and they did, and he stepped up in some big moments. This is why Sanchez, for me, is the starter, because I think he's just got that little bit of extra experience on Jorgensen, that he's going to make saves like some of the ones we saw today. Some of the one-on-one chances, the volley in the second half that he tipped over. There are several moments like that where I trust him a little bit more than Jorgensen right now. And I do think Jorgensen's been playing well, and I do think if Sanchez has a couple of bad games, I do expect Jorgensen to probably take that spot from him, because it's not like Jorgensen's not been making any saves. But I think Sanchez, between the two of them, looks a little bit more comfortable in those situations, in the one-on-ones, in the really tough saves to make. He looks like he's a bit more experienced in that. Into defense, you got Gusto on the right side. I thought I had a better game today. I've been a little disappointed with him in the past few games, even though everybody's been raving about him. I just feel like there have been a few gaps in his game that have been exposed. Defensively, it feels like he's not reading situations very well. Felt like he was getting beat a little too easily in the past couple of matches. But I thought today looked a lot more comfortable defensively. I thought he made some good challenges. On the ball, still could use some work. I know that's not really why he's out there. You'd prefer to have Reece James in those situations, but he is getting into those positions. So we do need him to improve his crossing and his passing in those moments. He had a couple of good ones, but I look at most of his crosses, I think all of them were overhit. And again, it's not necessarily his fault, because I don't expect him to be putting in brilliant crosses because he's a fullback, but he is getting into those positions. So if he's going to be the one that's on the ball putting in crosses, he needs to improve that. And then Tosin on the right side of the center looked okay most of the game, but the goal does come from him lunging in for no reason whatsoever. Just stay on your feet and go with him. You probably have almost as much pace as he does. You should be able to put your body in the way. There's no reason, especially when you're the last defender, no reason for you to go lunging in. It's a chance you could catch him. That could be a straight red if the referee deems it. And knowing Peter Banks, he would love to give us a red card. So I don't understand what his thinking was in that moment, but it very clearly was not the best decision from him, and it led to a goal. It's one of those unfortunate things where he does a lot of stuff very well throughout the match, and then that one moment takes his overall performance down, because fortunately you can't be making mistakes like that in defense. Colwill, for the most part, was good, but also in the goal, he's culpable because he loses track of Mbemo. He lets him in behind him, and yes, Tosin has to do better on that challenge, doesn't need to lunge in and maybe hold him up. But for Colwill, the amount of times we've seen players run in behind him, and he has no idea where they are, and he loses track of the run. Our defense is terrible with that in general, but Colwill should have learned by now, as many times as it's happened to him, and it still continues to happen. He still has that problem. He still lets him in behind, completely ball watching, strikers running in behind him, no view of him, and all of a sudden, oh crap, I got to get back, and it's too late because he's faster. It is a little frustrating that we continue to see that happening. And for Colwill especially, who is somebody that doesn't seem to learn from his mistakes, it's getting a little annoying to me, because I talked about with Kulusevski how last season he let Kulusevski drive in on his left and have a shot, and it turned into a goal, and then he does it again this season. How many times are you going to let those players run in behind before you learn to keep your head on a swivel? First of all, don't ball watch. Don't turn your body completely to the ball to where you can't see what's going on behind you. But also keep your head on a swivel. Look and see where the striker is. And as soon as you see they're about to play the ball, you should be going with them. You should be running back, and you should be putting yourself in the way of them. And he doesn't. He continues to let it happen. And it's starting to get a little frustrating. I know it's only one mistake, but it still is the same mistake that's happened before, and that's where I get frustrated with this team sometimes. Also, his passing today was a little off at times, and it was a little scary the way he was giving it away a little cheaply. Kukure on the left side, obviously after last week, probably wanted to redeem himself a little bit because of the slip and all of that, wanted to put that behind him, and the goal helps, but then the cards do not, and again, it could be Peter Banks just being an idiot and being a lazy referee, but you could tell he was kind of getting little into the thick of things, even on a yellow card. Honestly, the challenge wasn't great either. It looks pretty ugly. It wasn't red card worthy, but it was one of those where if he catches him, the referee might have a reason, because it was a little bit of a jump into it. He still has that in him. He still has that little bit of wild craziness in him. And I've talked about before how at times that wildness, the flying into challenges, it can be good, because it can put opponents off. We've seen it before where some of the best players, they can't handle that immediate pressure and the hard pressure, and he goes in hard, and it's great to see. but he's also got to learn when to not go in so hard. He's got to learn when to turn it down a little bit more. I guess if your biggest problem is you're working too hard or you're pushing yourself, you're a little too aggressive, especially because we're a team that apparently referees love to give yellow cards to, you need people like Cucurella to sort of calm it down a little bit and not put himself in that situation where now all of a sudden the referee could be looking at every challenge that he's making, and you get the wrong referee like today and you could be off. Into the midfield, Enzo and Caicedo in there again. And there were times whenever it felt like maybe we could have been a little bit stronger in there. Maybe that partnership still has its weaknesses if we're facing a team that has a bit more pace and strength in there. But I thought for the most part they handled it well. I think they both played well. I would say Caicedo probably played a little bit better because his challenges were just phenomenal. There's some great moments that I remember in the past I would get really frustrated with some of the players because there are moments you could see the ball is kind of in a 50-50. It's in between a group of players, and the Chelsea player that's closest, you could see them kind of get going as the ball ends up in that 50-50 area, but the player on the other team is already in motion. They're already stepping to it. They're already ready to go. And so by the time the ball gets to both of them, the player that's in motion on the other team easily gets there first, easily wins the ball, and now all of a sudden we're on the back foot. Caicedo, every time that ball is kind of up in the air 50-50, I always see him in motion. I always see him basically ready to step in and win the ball, and he reads the game so well. He does it so well. It's brilliant to see. I feel like every game I continue to see that, and I never get tired of seeing it because it makes me so happy to know that a player that honestly I think most everybody had written off at the beginning of last season how bad he was, he's completely turned it around now, and he's somebody that I can't imagine not having in the midfield because he is so influential for us. Fernandes is also a player that has turned it around too, but more recently. And a lot of that is just down to he's working a lot harder. He's getting stuck into challenges a bit more. And his passing is very impressive. And that's something that's always been a part of his game. But I feel like he sped himself up a little bit. You know, there were some moments where it felt like he was a little too slow to release the ball. His passing was always great, but he wasn't always able to show it because he was too slow to release. But now he's playing a bit quicker, playing a bit more energized, and it's great to see. And then on the right side, Madueke. This is the one I'm going to have to rip into a bit because very similar to the Forest game where he scored the goal that got us the point against Forest and everybody's praising him. But I'm looking at it going, yeah, he's also the reason why we only scored one goal though, because he wasted so many chances. Same story. It was so frustrating throughout that first half to see him waste chance after chance after chance after chance. The first one, it's the first time we have a breakaway. It's the first time that we have a chance to get at their defense because they've been packed in for like the first 15-ish minutes, I think. They were doing a great job of just being a block of 10 players in there. And it was so hard to play through them. Well, we kind of lose possession, but we win it back and they're stepped out. Ball gets played up to Madueke. We have a chance to run at their defense. I'm pretty sure it was a bad touch. Chance is dead. Chance is gone because you took a bad touch and allowed them to get possession back. And now all of a sudden, chance is gone. We have a chance to run at their defense and it's gone now. And there were several moments like that throughout the first half. Sancho's driving down. He's got Palmer to his right. Maybe he should have played that ball, but he decides he's got Fernandes and Madueke on the left side, puts a cross in, and Madueke just takes a donkey touch right to the defense. And now all of a sudden, chance is dead. There's another moment that leads to Brentford's best chance in the first half. Whenever ball goes out wide to him, he can't get a touch on the ball, loses possession, and now they break on us, and it leads to the best chance of their first half that Colwell got a good block on. But it starts from Madueke taking a terrible touch and losing possession way too easily. And then, of course, he gets the assist, and I'm sure everybody's going to look at that and say, oh, Madueke had a great game, and it's a great cross in. It's probably the only good ball he put in today. Most of them were terrible. They were right at the first defender. The amount of shots as well. If you watch him, anytime he shoots, it is head down blast. You're not going to score like that. Maybe once every 20 shots, you're going to score like that. Most of the time, head down shot, you're hitting the first defender. You want to know what he did 5 or 6 times today? Hit the first defender. In great situations, too. There was one moment, I think it was Palmer put in a decent cross that gets flicked on by the fullback right to Madueke's feet. And all I'm thinking is, touch, bend it to the far corner, easy goal. What does he do? Head down, blasted it right at the defender. Where's your touch? Where's your place? Where's your thoughts? because it feels like there's no thoughts going on up there. As soon as he gets in there, head down, blast it. I'm just so frustrated with it. He's going to get praise for the assist. Everybody's going to say, oh, he had a great game. He was dangerous today. He made some good runs. Second half, he did look more dangerous in general. I don't know what was going on the first 20 minutes, but it was almost like where Cucurella put on the wrong boots last weekend, Madueke put on the wrong legs, because it didn't look like those legs knew how to play football. Just terrible touches, terrible passes. It didn't look like he was a footballer. It looked like he was just a runner. But he did step it up. I thought his touch got a little bit better. He did look a little bit more confident on the ball. But the final decision-making, the final quality, it was still not there. Outside of the one cross for the assist, it wasn't there. He wasted chance after chance after chance that could have put us 2 up, and then 3 up, and then 4 up. And instead, what happened? We were 1-0 for most of the match. And then Jackson manages to make it 2, and Madueke has a chance to make it 3 shortly after. He doesn't, and now all of a sudden, they're only a goal behind. But it just gets really frustrating because he doesn't seem to learn from it either. I think that's probably my biggest issue, is whenever a player doesn't learn from past mistakes. Whenever you do the same thing that was incorrect before, and you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, clearly you're not learning. Clearly you're not learning from your mistake, so why are you still out there? And this was his chance to prove why maybe he deserves a bit more of a chance in the first team. I didn't see it today. I see no reason for it to not go back to being Neto and Sancho on the wings as soon as Neto's back. Madueke didn't give me anything to get excited about, to see more of him. I saw the same old selfish, bad decision-making player in the final third that I'm just used to seeing at this point. Sancho on the other side, I thought was a little quiet today based on his last few performances, but I think a lot of that was down to the fullback on that side was actually doing a really good job. Like, he wasn't diving in, he was staying with them. Anytime he'd go down the line, the fullback was there to where best he could do was put in a decent-ish cross. I think the only time I really got frustrated with him was the moment when Palmer played him through, and instead of just having a shot, he takes it past the keeper, and instead of crossing it in, then he cuts it back behind the keeper, and then he puts in a terrible cross that hits the first defender. It's probably the one part of the game where I got frustrated with him, and that was just because I was frustrated in that moment, because I wanted the game killed off, and that was just another on top of several other missed opportunities. But outside of that, I did feel like he was creating a lot of good opportunities. He was holding the ball up pretty well for most of the match. Yeah, overall, I thought he was fine today, just maybe not quite the same level of quality that we've seen from him over the past few matches, especially what we saw at Tottenham. He was unplayable. Today, I felt like he was a little bit more well-guarded, and he wasn't really able to find any clever situations out of it. Palmer in the center was okay. It kind of faded in and out of the match, which I've talked about before. I think that's kind of intentional. He'll sort of pull himself out of the play for a little bit, maybe draw a defender with him, and then all of a sudden for 5 to 10 minutes, he gets on the ball and he starts making stuff happen. And he starts really putting in dangerous balls, dangerous passes, dangerous looking crosses as well. It is very reminiscent of what I remember watching Hazard do, where he would kind of maybe disappear for about 5 to 10 minutes. You wouldn't really see him, and then all of a sudden he'd get on the ball and he would just absolutely terrorize defenses. Maybe not the same level that we've seen from Palmer this season so far, but I still think he was very effective and created a lot of good chances for us throughout the match. And then Jackson, I was so happy for him to see him score that goal, because it definitely felt like we were starting to see maybe the return of the Jackson from last season, because you could tell the confidence was starting to wane. After the Tottenham match, of course, everybody was pointing out how he was very frustrated with himself. You could see he was very upset to come off. And I was worried that confidence might start to waver a little bit. Maybe we wouldn't see the same level of performance that we've seen from him for most of the season. And I will say, I mean, he still works very hard. And that's something that I will never, ever doubt that he will give us, is 100% hard work off the ball, pressing, cutting off passes as well as he can. And he gave us a lot of that today. It's the finishing that obviously we want to see from him. And I can tell he's a player that when he's not feeling confident in himself, when that frustration with himself starts to grow, that's when we'll see that finishing start to disappear. And we saw that for some moments today. I think the most obvious moment was the ball through from Palmer, and he trips over his own feet and the chance is gone. That was the moment where I was really worried. I started to really get concerned that if he comes off without a goal today, I worry if his confidence is just going to be in the mud. But the next thing you know, I think it was a few minutes later, great ball through from Fernandez, and he puts it in the back of the net. Great for him. And you could just see his mood lift after that. And I was kind of hoping that maybe Maresca would give him a little bit more time just to see if maybe he could get another and really start to build up that confidence. But at the same time, he was also kind of hobbling back, so I understand not wanting to risk it. But I hope that that's going to be kind of a motivator for him, and that we'll see a little bit more of a return to form in the next match, whereas today, I think for most of the match, it was the good hard work, but without that finishing quality. And then we saw that finishing quality show up there at the end, and it was great to see. And then obviously only one sub to talk about in Cuckoo, and he was just sort of out there. I would have liked to see a little bit more control from him today. I felt like this was going to be a good game for him to come on and then hold up the ball a little bit better, keep a little bit more possession for us, but it felt like he wasn't really doing much of that. Some of that is down to the fact it felt like we started just dumping the ball forward, and obviously Nkuku's not the tallest, so he's not really going to do much to hold up possession. But still felt like there were a couple of moments when we were in possession that I kind of was hoping he was going to be a little bit more involved in keeping the ball and keeping the possession for us. And it kind of felt like he was just sort of up there, just being a body. But as it stands, obviously, we're in second place, only 2 points behind Liverpool because they dropped points, Arsenal dropped points, Man City dropped points this weekend. It's a great feeling. And obviously everybody's going to be talking about the title race again, but here's the thing. At the end of the day, our goal for this season was Conference League and top 4. Even then, a lot of us did not think top 4 was going to be a possibility, but once we saw how good the performances were, we saw how much Maresca was improving this team, top 4 seemed a lot more reasonable for us. Just because we are technically in the race and we're close to the title, we're close to the top spot, does not mean that we are pushing for that. Does not mean we feel the pressure if we don't get it. And that's where I feel like people saying, are you in the title race? It's one of those loaded questions where technically looking at it, obviously we're in there. We're only 2 points off of first. So obviously you could claim we're in the title race, but that's not our goal. And that's where when Maresca says, when any of us say we're not in the title race, it's not because we're not near the top spot. It's because that's not what we're pushing for. We're not going to put pressure on ourselves to go win every match because we have to, or else we're down and out. I mean, look at, I use Arsenal as an example. They've dropped 4 points to Fulham and now to Everton. Look how much pressure is on Arteta now because of 2 games where you drew, one of which was a draw on the road against Fulham, who are a good team. They just got a point off of Liverpool at Anfield. So clearly drawing at Fulham is not a bad result, but for Arsenal, it was devastational. And now you go into the weekend against Everton, you can't even score against them. Look how much pressure is on them to win. Whereas for us, yeah, obviously we've won our past 2 matches. And granted, last weekend I think it was a lot more important for us to win just because it's Tottenham and we always win at 3-point lane. But this one today, I mean, yes, Brentford are a bogey team and we want to beat them because of that. But we're not sitting here pressured like, oh crap, guys, we've got a chance to pick up 2 points in this title race. That's not where our mindset is. If it is, then every drop point is going to feel like the end of the world, because as good as Liverpool are this season, we cannot afford to be dropping points if that's what we're pushing for. Whereas you look at Arsenal, Man City, clearly they're not at the same level right now. They're not playing at the same level that we've seen from them before. We don't have to win every match if we want to be top 4, and that's what we're comfortable with. And a lot of it is just down to it keeps the pressure off of this young team. Because we saw today, I mean, Brentford at the end of the match, when they're pushing, they're really getting in there and they're trying to cause trouble. They're being a little cheeky with some of their challenges. You could see some of the players, Caicedo went in and shoved a guy to ground. Stupid. It was clearly getting to him. And the amount of shoving they were doing, it was getting in his head because Caicedo, as good as he is right now, he's still young. Cucurella, still a young player. All these guys are still young, so it can still get in their head. And if there's pressure that, oh crap, we got to win this so that way we can push Liverpool for the title, well, all that pressure is going to crumble this team. So that's a lot of the reason why we're not in the title race. That's not what we're pushing for. If we're there or thereabouts near the end of the season, cool. That's well beyond what we were expecting. But it's almost like you go to run a marathon, right? You're not looking to win the marathon. Most people run it, just to say that they did it, just to prove that they can do it. If all of a sudden you're at the head of the race, if you're one of the front runners in the race, that's really impressive. Doesn't mean you're going to go on and try to beat everybody else and push yourself too hard to get there at the end. You're going to finish out the race. And if you do manage to top everybody, if you do manage to get there at the end ahead of everybody else, awesome. That is a very impressive achievement. But that's not what your goal was. Your goal was to finish the marathon. Finishing the marathon for us is getting top 4, is winning the Conference League. Those are the 2 goals we want to complete this season. If we are there or thereabouts, if we win the title, phenomenal. We will be absolutely ecstatic. But we're not going to put the pressure on the players and say that's what we want right now, because we're happy with what we've got. Where we've been as a club, where this ownership has taken us, this is a huge step up. Maresca has been phenomenal in what he's doing. These players have really, really come along well, and some of them have stepped up this season and shown what they're capable of, and that's great. And I love that for them. But we still have a ways to go before we are truly capable of saying we are the best team in England. And I think we will see that. I do believe as long as we do our business in the summer, I think next season we could truly be a title challenging, a title winning side. But for now, we are still not quite there. But anyways, that's about it for me. Obviously very happy with the 3 points. I think we got Shamrock Rovers midweek, and then we've got Everton next weekend, I believe, which, funny enough, my family's going to go, and I'm not going to be there because my stepbrother's an Everton fan, and he wanted to go see Goodison before they moved out. So they decided to go to the Chelsea game because my dad's a Chelsea fan, so now they get to go to the match. I get to sit here in the States and watch on the TV and feel jealous. But it's okay. I'll cope somehow. But obviously, those are 2 matches that we want to win. Everton clearly showed this weekend that they're no pushovers either. Sean Dyche, he knows how to grind out results, even though they haven't really been doing it this season. But as always, I feel like we expect to win these matches against these lower clubs in the bottom half of the table. We've been doing our job against them this season, so we kind of expect 3 more points. And the game against Shamrock, obviously, is a little bit of a toss-up, only because I'm pretty sure we're already guaranteed a knockout round place. So I kind of expect to see, especially knowing some players have knocks, some players are sick, I do expect to see probably another young lineup here. But it'll be a nice moment for them to not only get to play in Europe, but also to play in front of the Chelsea fans at Stamford Bridge. I mean, that's an exciting moment for them, so I'm sure they'll be up for it. But I think with all that being said, those are my thoughts on today. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the game today? Let me know what we can talk about and discuss, all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on there as well as a couple Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.